Here we are on the front of our Prowler 323 SBR. We're going to be doing a technical walkthrough on this unit, just like you would get on the date of delivery, going over the components of it, giving you a little bit of information and tips and tricks along the way. If your unit varies slightly with a different appliance or something that you want to know a little bit more about, we have that information in the HAPS Helpful Hacks section of our Great American RV YouTube channel. So here on the front, we'll start, we have our 7-way plug. It's going to transfer all of your lights and everything on here, and it's also going to transfer your battery charge line, keep your battery charged up while you're traveling down the road. It'll pull off the alternator of that vehicle, and then you're also going to have your brake control wire that'll pull off of your brake controller and activate the brakes on our trailer. Also, for our brakes, we are going to have this safety breakaway cable. This safety breakaway cable has a loop on it. You want to loop that and hook it to the receiver hitch itself, where you would hook your safety chains up to on your towing vehicle. You want it attached to that. Idea is if the hitch, chains, anything like that fails, this will pull out the pin out of that breakaway box and it will activate the brakes on our trailer and bring it to a stop. This is only going to work if we have a good solid 12-volt battery on our trailer, because if all this stuff disconnects, it has to have power to be able to pull from to activate those brakes. So we want to make sure we have a good battery on our system, and we also want to make sure that that pin is inserted in that box at all times. That way our brakes aren't active when we don't want them to be. Up here in the front, we have that 12-volt powered ton jack. If you follow that red wire down, you will have an inline fuse generally on that system. And if this jack isn't working, you want to check that. You also want to check to make sure that you have a good 12 volts on your battery, otherwise this isn't going to operate. In the event that you can't figure it out, you can pull that black cap on the back of it off, stick crank handle in there, and manually override that jack to get you out of a jam. Next thing is we have our dual propane tanks right here. Dual propane tanks are operated by a dual propane regulator. You have both tanks on. You use the selector valve to choose which tank you want to be your primary. Indicator on there will tell you whether it's full or empty. It will begin to use out of that primary tank. When it runs dry, that indicator will let you know, hey, I'm empty, and then it will automatically swap over to that secondary tank. Indicator will still regard to empty as far as the primary tank until you move that selector switch over, and then it'll read whatever is in that now primary tank. The old primary tank you can have refilled, replaced, whatever you want to do, stick it back into the system. Behind that, we do have our 12-volt battery right here. 12-volt battery and our battery disconnect. Battery disconnect is important because when we store our unit, we need to turn it off if we store our unit unplugged. That is to conserve the power on the battery, so nothing in your unit will be pulling off of it because nothing is charging it if you are unplugged. If you keep your unit plugged in, leave that battery disconnect on. If you're camping and using your unit, leave that battery disconnect on so that battery can make sure and get charged up while it can. On the driver's side of our unit, we do have a storage hatch that brings us into our bunkhouse area right there. We can put some large storage and stuff in there. We also have our Lippard stabilizer jacks down here at the bottom. They are electric, flip of a switch. You're going to have this in the front and the rear. Now on the opposite side of this motor, which means on the passenger side, you do have an override in the event 12 volts is not working, motor went out, whatever. There is a crank on the other side. Get that crank handle, put it on the fitting, and you can manually operate those jacks if you're in a jam. Now those are stabilizer jacks only, not levelers. We want to make sure that we understand the difference. Stabilizer jacks are meant to help stabilize the unit, reduce movement inside, not level your unit. So in order to level your unit, you'll need to get the stacker blocks we sell at our camping store. Stick those under your tires as you're backing up to level your unit from left to right. Then you'll use your ton jack in the front to level it from front to back. Once that's done, then you put your stabilizer jacks down. You just want to put a little bit of pressure on them. You don't want to try to lift the camper up or anything. Too much weight on those jacks will bend and break them. They are not intended to lift that camper. So behind our compartment door and our jacks, we're going to have our sewer outlet with our gray tank and black tank down here at the bottom. We have our connection right here where we'll hook that hose up to the sewer system either at the campground or the dump site as we're leaving, and that is where we will dump our tanks. Now our gray tank is going to be shower and sink water only, fairly clean water, no big deposits or anything like that. So as long as you have that hose hooked up, you can open that valve and leave it open all the time. let that water drain out. Of course, if you don't have that sewer system at your campsite, you will need to keep it closed until you get to that dump station. Our black tank, however, is going to be our sewage from our toilet. We need to always make sure we're keeping water in that black tank, otherwise the solids that go in there will dry up, cause dry tank, and that's an expensive, nasty, dirty repair you don't want to have to visit, right? So leave that black tank valve closed all the time until you're ready to dump. When you are, you go ahead and pull that black tank handle and dump all that system out. Now there is no black tank flush fitting on here to be able to have that jet in there. That is something you can add aftermarket if you wish, but what you'll have to do is you can get a hose with the wand handle to be able to flush that tank out, open up your toilet, stick that wand in there and flush the tank out that way. Once you are done flushing it out, then you can go ahead and close that valve off, and then you want to go to your toilet, hold down that pedal and fill it with several gallons of water. Want to keep several gallons of nice clean water in there, and then add our chemicals in there as well. And while you're traveling down the road, that's going to wash around in that tank, knock down any debris that may be on the sides, and the chemicals will help degrade what's left in that tank. Welcome to flush it again when you get home, or just leave it in, add some more chemicals until the next trip. You'll notice right in the middle of your slide out, whenever it's retracted, you will have another port down there at the bottom. That port is a second gray tank. You can get another hose, have it hooked up, so you can drain that at the same time. Here on the rear of our unit, we're going to notice our 50 amp power supply right here. That's a twist lock plug with a little retainer ring on there. We're going to put that in, lock it in, and then we want to tighten up that retainer ring. So kids running around, so on and so forth, don't yank that thing out of the system, causing power failure to your unit. Once we've got this locked in, then we go plug it into the power pole. We do that last, that way we can make sure we don't have any arcing at this plug right here whenever we're plugging it in. Also want to make sure that our appliances such as our air conditioner are off whenever we go to put that system power to that system, and we're not causing any surges to our compressor. Down below that, we have our switch for our, once again, stabilizer jacks here in the rear, and then you're going to see a little hole cut out in that J-wrap, and you're going to see a little bolt sticking out of the frame. That is an override for our slide out that's on the passenger side. You have one on your driver's side too. That hole is opposite it as well, right near the steps, and that is an override. These are 12-volt slide outs. They have the rack and pinion system through the frame. You can take your crank handle in the event that slide out isn't working, put it in there and manually crank that slide out in. Besides that, we have our city water connection over here. That city water connection is going to be used whenever you have a hose bib at the campground. We go ahead and hook that water hose up, hook it up to our fitting, crank it up, and then we can go ahead and supply water to all our fixtures in our unit. On the back of our unit, we are pre-wired for that Furrion backup camera system up there. That backup camera system is powered by our running lights. When we turn our running lights on our towing vehicle, it'll light up the lights on a trailer and power up that Furrion camera system. If you were to add it on, you can monitor what's behind you while you're traveling or while you're backing up. Back here, we're also going to have our park cable set up right here. We have cable at the campground. We'll hook our coax up, and that will travel to the inside TVs that we have in there. We can scan for cable channels. We're also going to notice on the driver's side back corner up there, we are prepped for that Lippert on-the-go ladder system. Has that bracket up top that is used for if you want to purchase that telescopic ladder to be able to hook into that bracket and gain access to our roof. Now this is very important. We need to check our sealants on our roof around our vents, side rails, all that stuff every 60 to 90 days. This includes all the sealant around our trims, anywhere where a hole was put in the side of our unit, windows, so on and so forth. We need to check that sealant every 60 to 90 days. Manufacturers will not participate after the first 90 days in any water damage due to lack of maintenance of our unit. That's just like changing the oil in your car. You're maintaining your camper for years to come. You want to make sure it lasts. So please, please, please check your sealants for any degradation, peeling, cracking, anything like that. Clean it, then reseal it. We also want to check the rubber on that roof to make sure no low-lying tree limbs have scraped, poked any holes in that rubber, causing any water to be able to get into those holes. We also want to clean our roof about once or twice a year when we can. More than anything, we need to make sure that we are taking care of that sealant so your unit will last. Also, the plastic caps on our bumper right there can be removed, and we can store our sewer hose in there if we wish. All right, now on the passenger side, we do have our 12-volt powered awning as well as our 12-volt powered awning lights. All that stuff will operate through our 12-volt system off of that battery or converter power. We do have a 12-volt fuse panel on the inside. You'll want to check in the event that this stuff isn't working. We'll show you where that is a little bit later. Now on our awning, it is mainly a sunshade, all right? It is not intended for any heavy weather, windy weather, anything like that. You want to go ahead and roll that awning in. It will not last. It will fall, it will break, it will rip, it will tear, and it will be an expensive insurance claim. So make sure that we leave our camper for an extended period of time. We'll roll that awning in. We know a storm's coming, roll it in. Now you will get light rain, light dew, and you also get condensation from our AC on top of this awning. What we don't want it to do is puddle on that awning and give it an opportunity to collapse. So one thing that we need to do is pitch our awning either down in the front or down in the rear. Both of these awning arms are the same, so you can do it on either end, whatever you prefer. But all you have to do is loosen this knob right here, and then we're going to pull our awning arm down, and then we're going to tighten that knob back up. Now we have tilted our awning to the front, and water can run off there. Whenever we are ready to go ahead and roll that awning in, loosen that knob up, pull our awning arm back out, we can flip that switch and start running it back in. Over here under our awning, we do have a vent over our stove top. That is for our hood vent. That vent right there does have 2 tabs on it. You can go ahead and close them whenever you store your unit, keep insects from building any nests in there. You want it open whenever you operate that hood vent. Here we have our Suburban water heater right here. This is electric and gas. We'll go over the operation of that when we get to the inside. Our Suburban gas furnace right there. And we also have our GFCI controlled outlets right there. GFCI, ground fault circuit interrupt. And that means that there is a main outlet inside our unit that is going to control those outlets in the wet locations. So we'll go over that here in a little while. Just know if you see an outlet with GFCI on it, then that means that they're all going to be controlled by that main outlet. Over here we do have that outdoor shower with our hot and cold. We also have our gravity fill for our storage tank. So we have that fresh tank onboard storage on our unit. We're going somewhere where it doesn't have water or we need it while we are in travel. We can go ahead and gravity fill that, remove that cap, stick that hose in there, and let it fill up that tank. Now that tank is going to add weight to your unit, so keep that in mind. Only take what you need. If you're not using the water, there is a drain line right down there at the bottom, blue hose with a little valve on it. You can go ahead and drain that water system out. You don't want to leave water in there for an extended period of time because that water will become stagnant over time. So after your trip, just drain it out, and when in doubt. In here we have our outdoor refrigerator right here. That outdoor refrigerator is a 110 operated fridge. So anytime you plug your unit on, that unit is going to be on. It's going to freeze, it's going to cool. So that means whenever we unplug it, it's going to defrost. So we need to make sure we are wiping out at that refrigerator area, defrosting the freezer, getting any water out of that system, because we don't want it to leak out of that fridge and damage any of our wood components around it. If we do damage that stuff, manufacturers are not going to participate in that type of repair. Consider maintenance to defrost and take care of your fridge properly. Below that, we are going to have our little gas griddle right here. We undo our travel latch, we pull it out, we flip our lid over on this one, and you're going to see our LP line right here. Male connection on this LP line. If we go ahead and run it through the hole in the back, we're also going to see our female connection down here at the bottom on the frame. We can go ahead and hook that in. On those, there is going to be a little valve on there. You're going to have to make sure that valve is off whenever you go to make that quick connect connection, and make sure that whenever we want the gas to flow, we need to turn that valve back on. It will not disconnect unless we turn that valve off. So keep that in mind. Whenever we're done, we flip that back over and we can store it. Make sure we're using our travel latches right there so that stuff can't bounce around. Also down here on the bottom, we're also going to notice a red and blue line next to our drain line for our fresh tank. That red and blue line are our winterization lines that are low point drains for that system. So that's when we want to drain all our water out and prep for winter. If we want more information on that, we can go to our owner's manual or find that video on Hap's Helpful Hacks. All right, moving on to our entry door, we will notice some resistance on that entry door. That's our friction controlled hinges. Keep that door from slamming shut or open with the wind. We're also going to notice we have our solid steps. In order to store those solid steps, we'll make sure that entry door is all the way open so we don't cause any scratches or tear up our screen door right there. We lift them up. and we lock them in. We have that little blue latch here on the side. Give that frame a yank and make sure that it does not fall out. While it's in that position, I'll point out you do have another hole right here. That's for that slide out on the other side. Remember the override we talked about? We can stick our crank handle in. When we're ready to go ahead and fold those steps down, we pull that blue latch right there and we drop it down. Now the thing about our steps is they need to be leveled too. As soon as we have our unit leveled from left to right, front to back, we need to also level our steps. Really easy to do. We have these silver tabs on each leg. We push it down and we can extend or retract those legs up and down in order to get them level. So I would put it down like this, pull that tab and move those legs in and out. What we're looking for is not just safety, moving in and out and level steps. We're also looking for a solid flush threshold right here. That way that door will actually close properly and not get any hang-ups. And we're also looking at how this frame closes on the steps right here, making sure your door frame doesn't make contact with your step frame and tear anything up, cause any damage there. All right, here we have our control center. Right when you walk in the door, you're gonna have your battery, your fresh tank, gray tanks, and black tanks. Your unit only has one black tank, two gray tanks. This is a generic model that they put in all of their units, so based on how many valves you have outside is going to decide how many tanks you have, right? We're also going to see on here our water pump. That 12-volt water pump is going to pull from our fresh tank system. Whenever we don't have a city water connection, we'll kick that on and pull from that fresh tank, supply water to all of our fixtures on the inside. Now with that, we also want to realize that if we have a city water connection, turn that system off. It's also an on-demand system, so you're going to hear that pump operate whenever water is running in our unit. If you're 100% certain you don't have any faucets running and you hear that pump running, one of two things is happening. Either you have a leak somewhere in your system or that fresh tank is empty. So keep that in mind. You want to listen for that, turn that pump off. We don't want it constantly running if the water's not running through it. Otherwise, it will burn up that pump. Now we have our water heater options right here, LP and gas. At LP system, we need to make sure that our tanks are on, of course, and it's a good idea to bleed the air out of your system before you go to operate this. We'll touch on that when we get to our stovetop, but whenever you're ready, you'll go ahead and kick that on. We'll notice the DSI fault light up there at the top. That light right there will stay on until that system lights, then it will go out. If there is an issue with your system, that light's going to stay on and that system will never light. So just keep that in mind whenever you're operating that system. We can see it turned off. Our system is lit. Next to that, we have our 110 electric portion of our water heater. That is operational as long as we are plugged into shore power. Just kick that on. That'll start that heating element inside our unit. That is powered off the electric. We can have both of these systems on at the same time. If we wish, it will help speed up the process a little bit when it comes to heating up that water. On our light 1 and light 2, one is for your outside lights, one is for your inside lights, and then we have our slide outs in and out for 1 and 2, and then we also have our awning extend and retract as well. All of this stuff is all 12-volt operated system. If we have any issues, you want to go to that 12-volt fuse panel next to the 110 panel on the interior. We'll show you here in a little while. Here at our entertainment center, we have our backer for our TV right there. We also have a little coax plate right here with a little button on it, a little light. That light indicates that our 12-volt boost is on. The button turns it off and on. If we are searching for air channels, antenna channels, we want that boost on, so we want the light on. That way it will help boost and pick up more channels in the area. And if we are searching for cable channels, meaning we have a coax hookup at the campground, we want that light off so it doesn't scramble the channels from our cable. Besides that, we have our radio system with Bluetooth, and we have our indoor and outdoor speakers. And we also have our 110 fireplace, pretty easy to operate, but we'll go over a little bit more information on that. Here we have our fireplace. We have a sensor right up here in the top right. We have to aim that remote at to turn it on. We have our Celsius and Fahrenheit temperature we can change to. And right here, this little flame icon is going to change the dimness of our flame. If we want to change the lighting of our flame, we hit the light bulb on the screen down here at the bottom, and it'll give you some different options right there. If we want to operate our heater on a timer, once again, electric heater, it is going to be this button right here. It looks like a clock, and when we push it, we can see some times pop up, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, all the way up to 8, and then it will go to 0 hours, letting you know that that timer is off. If we want to change our temperature, we'll use one of these two buttons at the bottom, and we can see once again we have a temperature down there, and we will go ahead and raise it until it kicks on, or lower it, we want it to kick off, or we can keep going until it says on, and that heater will stay running all the time. We kick it up one more time and it's going to say OF, meaning that that system is off. Here we are in our bathroom. Our shower is pretty cut and dry. You got hot and cold, and then you're also going to have a shower head that turns off and on. That is for whenever we are dry camping. If we are trying to conserve the amount of water we are using out of our fresh tank and the amount of water we're putting in our gray tank, then we want to use this whenever we are showering. It's a lot easier than trying to find that hot and cold spot, you know, back after you turn that water off. So in between rinsing off and lathering, just shut that shower head off, do what you need to do, and then you can rinse off without having to worry about turning that system off. If you don't want to use it that way, you certainly don't have to. If you're hooked up to city water and you have that sewage system outside and you're not worried about how much water you use or how much you put in your tanks, rock and roll, use it just like you would at home. We do have a vent in here. It is suggested you turn that vent fan on whenever you take a shower, get the heat and humidity out of here, and reduce the opportunity for mold and mildew. Also in our bathroom, we have our toilet system. Toilet system is pretty simple. You have a flush pedal down there at the bottom. You kick that on to flush what's in the toilet. Now we're only putting number 1 and number 2 into our toilet, as well as RV toilet paper only, as well as chemicals. So those are only 4 things that are supposed to go in here, nothing else. I'm telling you, nothing else. It will get clogged in the pipes and the valves. Seen it a million times. Make sure you're only putting sewage, toilet paper, and chemicals in there. For number 1, it's just liquids. Just hit that pedal and flush it down the drain. For number 2, we have solids, right? We need to make sure that we fill that bowl up half to 3/4 of the way before we flush that system down, so there's enough water to flush the solids down the drain. If we don't, we could cause some issues with clogging out that system, and we don't want all that. So to do that, just barely push that pedal down and begin to fill that bowl up half to 3/4 of the way. Besides that, once again, RV toilet paper only, and choose what chemicals you'd like to use. In our front bunkhouse area, we are prepped for that washer dryer setup over there with our drain and our hot cold line, as well as our outlet. Now you will notice that system is not hooked to the tanks. It is only an exit pipe outside. You'll have to hook a hose directly to it and have that drain out to your gray tank system. Now as far as here, you do have these removable bunk options right here. Both of these can be removed out, and you can have a large storage area underneath. Behind that, we do have our solar charge controller right here. This is converting that solar power energy into charging power for our battery system. If your unit is already equipped with those solar panels, you do have that option for that system, and you're also going to see that other disconnect right here. That is to disconnect and turn off that solar system if you wish. Completely separate from our battery disconnect. If we are storing our unit unplugged and we have that solar system set up on our unit, we can certainly charge our batteries while it is doing that, in which case we want this system on. When we do that, the outdoor system will have nothing to do with this solar. For that main battery disconnect, you can have it off or on. This solar will still charge. In our kitchen, we do have our 110 microwave right there, as well as our hood vent. We talked about the vent outside. We need to make sure those latches are open so this will actually ventilate out. Here we have our Suburban 3-burner cooktop right here with the glass cooktop. Add more counter space right there. It's also how our unit needs to travel. When we cook, we need to go ahead and flip this up and store it like that. Put our pot on and we can cook. Now for our stove, we pick our designated burner. We turn that knob to light right there on the side, and then we crank until that system lights up. Now once that burner lights, you're good to go ahead and cook. Now we talked about bleeding out our propane system earlier when we were talking about our water heater. That is pretty simple to do. You do just that. You light up your system. Anytime you store your unit with your valves off on your propane tanks, which is perfectly normal, you pull it out, you're generally going to have air in your propane lines after that. Or if your tank ran out of fuel, then you're going to end up with air in your system after you change that tank out. So in order to go ahead and get that air out of your system, just turn your tanks on, come over here to that stove top, turn it to light, and crank it up. Now of course it's not going to be that quick. It's going to take a little longer to get it to light, and you want to burn it until you have that nice blue flame on the system, and we know we've gotten a majority, if not all, of our air out. Now you're only going to have to do it that one time until you either run out of gas or you shut those valves off again. Besides that, that air has been bled out of the system. Now for our oven, going to be slightly different. It's going to still have some air in the system for that, and it's going to take a little bit longer. You're going to turn to our pilot on position on that valve. Now we're going to have to hold that button down. That's the only way for gas to be emitted out of that system unless it is lit and up to temperature. So turn it to our pilot on, push that button down, get your manual lighter, get up under there and light that pilot manually. Once it's lit, let it run for about 30 seconds, and then we can go ahead and turn to our designated temperature on our system. Should see that bar light up for our burner, and then we can close our oven and we're ready to cook. Now for our 12-volt refrigerator, in this case we have an Everchill. You're going to see down here at the bottom we have our control center for our refrigerator. We can go ahead and change it from cold to colder or coldest, and in our freezer we'll have a dial up there for our temperature control. Now we can turn this system completely off by holding down that button right there, and that'll shut that system off. Once again, 12-volt operated fridge. It's going to pull off of your 12-volt battery system. Now when we shut this system off, just like our outdoor fridge, no drain tubes here. We need to wipe out and clean and get all the condensation out of there and reduce mold and mildew inside our fridge and freezer. And mainly in our freezer, we want to defrost that ice out of there and get any standing water out. So when you move your unit, that water isn't dripping out and damaging our wood components around it. Over to the side of our pantry, we have our Coleman Mach thermostat right there for our AC system. We're going to go over the operation of that now. This is our AirXL thermostat right here. You'll have one for each separate air conditioning system in your unit. In order to operate, you'll hit that space bar down at the bottom. You'll cycle through. You have the options for fan low and fan high. This will only circulate the air throughout your unit. It will not cool your unit. So when we're ready to go into that cool mode, we hit it one more time and it's going to go into cool high or cool low. This will keep the fan on all the time. Whether your compressor circulates off or not, it will continue to blow that fan, so the air may not always be cool while it is initiated. Now one thing that you need to remember is during the summertime, you really actually want it running on cool highs, so it will help clear out that condenser and dry it up during those hot months where that compressor is only cycling every so often. If we want to keep it in auto where that fan shuts off, whenever the compressor shuts off, we're going to hit it one more time. We're going to go into auto and we can choose our low or high speed. Once again, that fan shutting off when the compressor shuts off and it's done cooling. For your central thermostat, more than likely in your living room area, you will have that heat option that will initiate the furnace as well. When we want to turn that system off, we just continue to cycle through till we get to that off position. When we want to change our temperature, we can just use these arrows right here. That will adjust our temperature on our unit. The initial temperature that you have on here, this is your actual room temperature that you have. This is a sealing assembly for our Coleman AC. We can notice that these are our return vents. They do have some filters on there. You pull those tabs down, clean those filters. We want to make sure we're doing that so we're not restricting the airflow to our AC and it can work efficiently. Now also on here, you're going to have two dump vents. You open that up, you're going to have air flowing out of those vents. That is to cool off this area quicker if you'd like. If otherwise, whenever you close them off, the air will work through our ceiling ducts, because that whole unit is like a racetrack. That air is going to flow through there kind of like it does with your house. But if these are open, you're not going to have any flow through that system, so keep that in mind for our AC. Down below our thermostat, right by our pantry, we're going to see our RVCOLP detector right here at the bottom. It's going to warn us of any cautious gases in our unit, let us know we need to evacuate. Now one thing we need to do is test that system by holding down that little button. We can also verify that it has power by that little green light glowing down there at the bottom, and check that system at least once a month, if not every time we go camping, to make sure it's working properly and that alert system operates good. Now we are going to have an expiration date stamped on either the front or the back of that system, letting you know that it is expired, and we want to go ahead and change that out when that date rolls around. It is hardwired into our 12-volt battery system, and it will be active anytime we have 12 volts. Now we also have our smoke detectors in our unit. Same thing goes for those. We need to check those regularly and make sure they're operating. Make sure we're changing out that 9-volt battery every so often too, to ensure that it's powered up. Not too much to go over in our bedroom area. We do have a location for our backer as well as another coax connection. And we have our second AC system right here. This one is manually controlled up here on our ceiling assembly with our high cool, low cool, high fan, low fan in order to operate that. The air for this system is only going to come out of these vents right here. You do have 2 more filters like we talked about for the front one, but it's not going to be hooked up and running through our ducted system. Now our front AC will still run through these ducts right here and still be blowing air through that system. We have a little bit of storage under our bed, and we have our 110 12-volt system right down there. Let's take a closer look at that. All right, down below our storage area for all our clothes, we're going to see our 12-volt fuse panel right here, all labeled so you can see what they're going to. Little blade fuses, you can pull them out, check, make sure nothing is burnt if that component isn't working. Then we have our 12-volt or 110 appliances right here for all our breakers, once again, all labeled. We're going to notice down at the end they have that GFCI. Now remember we talked about that in those wet locations. If those outlets get wet or they are over amped because we have too many griddles, coffee makers, so on in that system, this will trip. We'll test that by hitting that white button right there, and that breaker goes ahead and trip, and we can just turn it off and reset it. So any of those outlets aren't working, that's where we want to go to reset that system.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit, and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.